This is episode 17 with Savoi Ragsdale. Welcome to the Reignite Podcast. My name is Todd Judkins, a former naval officer and corporate consultant turned life coach. And each week we'll bring you an inspirational person or message to help you discover how to reignite your life, get back in the game, and thrive in everything you do. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's light the fuse and reignite. Savoi Ragsdale is an award-winning author and motivational speaker. Today, she brings her dynamic personality and passion for life to the Reignite podcast and previews her upcoming book, Absolute Best. She shares how you can master your mindset to be the best you can be and be that person that is in alignment with your greater you. Is your life just mediocre? Or is there a fire burning deep inside, but fear, self-doubt, and procrastination are extinguishing your dreams? No more living a half-baked and unfulfilled life, just running around on autopilot. This is about getting out of your own way and start living the life you desire. If you want to get some wisdom dropped on how you can reignite and begin living with passion, then Savoi is your lamplighter. So let's get right to it with Savoi Ragsdale. Well, hello, Reignite Nation. Today we have with us Savoi Ragsdale. She is an empowerment coach and the author of the upcoming book, Absolute Best. Change your mindset, change your life. Savoi, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me today, Todd.
Oh, no, it's our pleasure. And mindset is one of the avenues we really preach here at Reignite. You know, we talk about de-stressing, we talk about getting better sleep, and that's all to develop an unbeatable mindset. And so it is really, you're bestowing an honor on us to come over here and talk about how we can be our best, how we can get our mindset so that we can achieve. But what I'm really interested in right off the bat is, how did you get there? What led you to taking mindset on as your absolute mission, as your absolute passion?
In my journey of wanting to steadily become a better person, I would call myself, I guess, a seeker. And in seeking, I have found that the number one area that I needed to really work on was my mindset. I did not realize to what degree that the way my mind normally works without me working on it is in a form of negativity. There's a certain percentage of negativity I've read that just that's how the mind works. So once I learned that, and I've learned it through things I've read, I've learned it through Susan L. Taylor of Essence Magazine used to do an article called In the Spirit. There was an awakening there. Of course, the consciousness and the learning and the growing that many of us learned through Oprah, and then a lot of the actual authors that were on her show. And of course, even just the Word of God discusses it. But what I love about what I've learned in these other areas is the practical application of how to work on my mind, the practical application of how to really help myself become the best version of myself. So that mindset thing I've learned is critical.
Yeah, that's so true, because I'm kind of on the science side, a little bit of science geek from my background. And the mind is, I tell people, is not set up to make you happy. It's set up to protect you. And so It's easier for that negativity to fly in there as opposed to being happy, really. And that's the goal of things. So What have you done in your past that really got you, what was that spark? What was that moment that you look back at and said, this is when I really transitioned from being just going with the flow and letting those negative thoughts affect me and impact my decision making to I need to take control of the situation?
Yeah. Somewhere along the line, maybe time-wise, I want to say about 15, 20 years ago, in the midst of a lot of the different speakers that I would either listen to or read, I just really began to turn inward and realize, you know what? I've got to work on this. One of my favorite motivational things I've listened to is from someone from way back, Earl Nightingale. And it's called The Strangest Secret. And I kid you not, I first listened to it and remember kind of put it by the wayside. And then one day I decided to take its challenge on. It gave a challenge at the end after talking about the importance of pretty much mining your mind. And what it reminded you of was that when something negative pops up, already have written down on an index card all of the positive things related to what you're working toward to help put your mind back on task. And As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, again, all these old writings, because what I found is, you know what? I tell you, they may have come a long time ago, but they're the same thing I need today. And what I loved about their writing was the simplicity of it and how they broke things down. Now, James Allen reminded me that my mind was like a garden. And he reminded me that unless I manage my garden, unless I go in there and till, guess what? I've got weeds growing. And if I've got weeds growing, even if I have some good fruit that's going on in my mind, guess what? The weeds will choke it out. And I kid you not, all of those type of things that I began to really, I call chew on and what I call meat. Sometimes I don't get it immediately, but boy, the more and more I kind of re-listen to or reread, I'm like, oh my God, this hits me like a ton of bricks. And so that's kind of where it all began for me. And then with Susan Taylor, she actually encouraged you to journal long before I even heard it, or maybe in synergy when I heard it on Oprah's show many times. And I was a journaler growing up. I had a diary. Whether I realized it or not, that was journaling. And I found myself going back to that. And boy, I tell you, when I would actually write out what I'm grateful for and then write out 10 things that I aspire for the day and 3 action steps that go with it, things started to change in my life.
That is powerful right there. And everybody listening, I hope you really, really took that to heart on the power of, one, journaling, writing down what your desires are, and doing it on a daily and consistent basis. And then 2, following up on what the actions of those that you need to do to make those a reality. That's really powerful. Mm-hmm. Which leads me, Savoi, into one of the areas I know that you really, really focus in is getting crystal clear on your vision. Talk to us about that. What does that mean? What do you do?
I call it CCV, crystal clear vision. Oh, your hands can't hit what your eyes can't see. Somewhere along the line, I've heard that somewhere. And surely enough, even the Word of God talks about the importance of writing your goals down, in addition to every person that we know that's helping any of us continue to move toward a better version of ourselves. And so what's important, I've learned, is putting as much detail as possible to what that goal is and as many steps that you plan to execute toward it, and then holding yourself kind of accountable. One of the things I enjoy doing daily is writing out what I'm to work on and bullet point and what my steps are, and then check those off as I execute. And surely enough, that helps me genuinely move my needle forward throughout the day. And of course, if I'm doing that daily, then I'm achieving something toward that weekly. That in turns becomes monthly, which in turns become one of the best years of your life. And so that's basically how I like to spoon feed myself into success, one step at a time.
Yeah, that's incredible. With that, how does one get that vision? How does one develop that step and desire? What steps do you recommend to get there?
Well, I believe meditating is one of the number one ways. I believe that's a strong way for a person to find out where their direction really lies. For me, just getting quiet. Every morning I have I call it my QT time, my quality time with myself, and it's quiet. I'm able to just get quiet and listen and find out what, in fact, my next steps are, is how I feel. I feel I'm connected when I do that with my best self. I believe my best self is the greater one that's within me. And I personally believe that's when all that conversation comes up, or direction or inspiration or whatever you want to call it. Shape it however you need to. But the bottom line is, I'm not listening to somebody else. I'm listening to the drummer inside me. I'm listening to what's calling me. Where do my desires come from? I strongly believe that God gives me the desires of my heart. But guess what? Just because He put it there, I still need to execute it. And so I believe that I'm gaining direction when I take that quiet time to be able to find out, what am I doing next? What direction am I going?
Yeah, that's, we preach this very same topic at Reignite. We are big meditators, right? We practice a very succinct form of meditation, Vedic meditation, which is a mantra, and it's really just a clearing, getting familiar with yourself, taking time in the morning. And it just seems that once you do that, your inner being, just like you said, whether it's God putting it there or Wherever your belief system wants to take you there, it's there.
Absolutely.
And it's just valuable experience. So once a person gets, here's something that, and I've asked several guests of this in the past, because this is something that just truly not only fascinates me, but I see it in the world, people just kind of going through the motion, really not focused in on their inner selves and their inner desires. If you had to see somebody, and somebody came up to you and said, Savoi, hey, I've been working at my company for 20 years, and I just don't know. What would you tell them? How would you tell them to kind of awaken in the fact that they can manifest, they can control their lives?
You know what? I would say to them, I've been exactly where you are. And can I tell you kind of a part of my journey?
Oh, please.
And then I would say to them, what I actually found with myself, there's that, I'll just call it the way I saw it for me. This may not be you, but I found myself existing and not living when I did something that really was not the best of what I should be doing in my life. And for me, surely enough, I couldn't immediately make a decision because maybe I still needed to take care of some bills and what have you. But maybe it became a hobby for me to begin to explore and find out what direction do I really want to take, and then begin to put some resources in place to allow me to one day be able to move toward that. But I commend you for doing what you've done. But the other part I commend you for is for awakening to realize it's not the sweet spot for you. It's not your zen. And you know what? It takes a lot to recognize this is not what I'm looking to do. This is not what makes me happy. This is not what I feel I'm called on this earth to do. This is not quite all it. So what do I need to do to help myself get there? And so first, I commend you in first off acknowledging, and then second off, to really, really decide to go within and find out what your Zen genuinely is. And then, you know what? Step out on faith. Because guess what? It takes courage to do something outside of what you're comfortable doing. It does. And you know what? Courage means in walking in the midst of that fear, possibly, in order to move yourself toward the fact that now you're walking toward faith. And so, I would say do your best in taking one step at a time there. And you know what? Pat yourself on the back when you at least make one step toward it, because it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. And, that's one thing that I personally had trouble doing in my entire life. And that was to take the time to celebrate my successes, because you work so hard. And I did it, just to be honest, I did it with this podcast. The podcast was about 6 months to a year in the process of from inception to actually executing. And then when I launched it, it was like, I'm on to the next thing and somebody just reminded me, hey, look what you just did. Take the time to celebrate it. And that's a huge step, and don't underestimate it. And you brought something else up, too, I really kind of want to dive a little deeper on, and that's fear. How does fear play into the mindset?
Fear is a paralyzer. If we allow it to do what it really should do, it probably is something that's letting us know we might want to take a look at something else, but it really should not do what we've allowed it to do. Or, well, let's say what I've allowed it to do in my life. What I've allowed fear to sometimes do, I use an analogy of quicksand, totally take away my dreams and aspirations, and kind of like it just snuffs it out because I've allowed the fear to take over instead of me moving toward faith. But one thing I've learned when it comes to fear, confidence comes in doing. Confidence comes in doing. I call it CCID. You can't move past your fear unless you take that one step past that fear in order to move past it. And once you've taken that one, you may find yourself taking another and another and another. And then before you know it, you'll go, what was I fearful of? I call it breaking the ice with yourself. I've had to break the ice with myself many times because I'll get in my head about why I should or shouldn't do this, or maybe I don't feel I can achieve whatever. And then I'll say to myself, you know what? Feel the fear and do it anyway. And boom, take that one step. There I go. And as I build, and the confidence, oh my God, the confidence that comes from that first step is just, oh man, so awesome that then I find myself, okay, if I can do that one, I can do the other. And what I've learned so far in my life, anything usually I'm fearful of, that's the direction I'm probably supposed to be going.
Isn't that an amazing fact? I mean, I was sitting here smiling, just thinking the exact same things. If I look back in my life and the direction, the change of direction I did, fear was there. But once I stepped through that fear, things changed radically, and it was always for the best. I have a thought that fear is just saying, pay attention. It's not saying don't do.
I like
it's
that.
just saying pay attention.
I like that.
And one of my mentors always said to me is that everything you ever wanted in your life is on the other side of fear.
Ooh.
And
I'm in love with that statement.
Right?
I'm in love with that statement.
And what I loved about what you just said is that you found that anytime you were fearful, it turned out to be the exact direction you needed to go.
Yes.
So again, everybody, pay attention. That's all it's saying. And couldn't agree with that statement more. Every time I've looked at fear and didn't want to act in a direction that something was pulling me there, but my fear was holding me back, and I overcame it, it turned out to be that's where I needed to be.
You know what else? One day I was listening to one of my favorites, ministers, and he had a series on fear and faith, Creflo Dollar. And I'm going to tell you, it changed my life. When he said that fear is contaminated faith, I chewed on that. He says, and they are polar opposites. You cannot have faith and have fear. You cannot have fear and have faith. So to me, I took that back to kind of how I try to look at things. There is no in between. Either I have faith or I have fear. I cannot have both.
That's powerful.
It is powerful. Then I say to myself, okay, Savoi, which master are you going to serve? And so I'm saying to myself, okay, I want to serve faith. So then, and so I start finding myself working toward that because it's like, you know what? No in between. Okay, come on now, make a decision. So, yeah.
Now, that's awesome. It reminds me of what Martin Luther King said, right? You don't have to see the whole staircase just to take the first step.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It goes right up with that one.
Yes.
Another thing I've come to realize, too, is that a lot of times when we're going down this journey, fear is a big piece of it.
It
but
is.
Also, some of the habits we've developed along the way impact our ability to achieve as well and to have that unbeatable mindset. What have you learned about how habit impacts our mindset?
Oh, I just love the direction of your questions. So, because this is so in line with everything for me. As a matter of fact, I say mindset comes first and habits second, because you have to first work on your mind in order to begin to work and be consistent on the habits. I love what Augmendino says. He says, hey, you cannot get rid of a habit unless you replace it with a good one. So a bad habit replaces a good habit. And so mastering good habits is the key. What I have learned is my life is a compilation of habits. Then when I say that, I say, okay, let's look at my life. Do I like what I'm doing? And then if there are areas where I see I'd like to make some adjustments, I'm working on changing a habit there. But I kid you not, habits and rituals after mindset are the keys. Those two things alone are my book, Absolute Best. Change your mindset, change your life, get those habits and rituals together. Let's run. Let's do this.
Wow. It seems like your book is going to pick up where my book left off, because my book takes you to that mindset place, right? I look at, in my book, Reignite, I look at getting clear on your vision. That takes care of some of the mental aspects. Reduce your stress. I advocate meditation as is my preferred path to do that. And that takes care of a lot of your physiology, along with another thing I advocate is sleep, teaching people how to sleep again. And that is to develop that unbeatable mindset. And from there, you can go, do anything. And it looks like your book, Absolute Best, is just picking up for where that leaves, because you're right. The next step is now we need to conquer our habits.
Yes, because not conquering them, they are conquering us. Yeah. Because no matter how we slice it, we have habits. All of us do. It's just a matter of reevaluating and seeing, okay, is this habit taking me the direction of where I plan to go? If not, I need to replace this habit. And I'm big on one habit at a time. I don't believe in a person trying to change a whole bunch of habits all at once. Get good on one habit, then guess what? Build on that. Build from there to the next habit you want to work on. And over time, you'll look and say to yourself, okay, these are the habits that I want to help propel me to where I'm going. And it's on.
Yeah, that's so true. And you mentioned a name. Can you repeat the name you just mentioned when you were talking about habits?
Augmendino.
Okay, so here we go. We found another place of commonality between what we think. I'm a big fan of Augs. And part of my morning ritual, or my daily ritual actually, is kind of reading and reviewing his scrolls. Right?
Ooh. So, you and me both.
So, yes, he has directed it towards sales, but it's just life.
It's life.
It is life.
His title happens to be sales, but it's all about life.
It's all about life. So,
It's all about life.
So if you're out there, I encourage you to dig a little bit more in Og's, his teaching and what he does. It will change your life because it has definitely changed mine.
That is definitely another book, because I could list a long list of books and authors who have changed my life, but his book is truly one that's at the top of the list for me. And when I've actually done his scrolls in the way he speaks of doing it, which is reading it 3 times a day for 30 days and not touching any other scroll until then, oh my God.
Yeah, and one of the things I've incorporated is, since I've kind of been through the scrolls for the 30-day period, I take a look at where I am and what I need, and I find that scroll and I stay on that for the next 30 days. So, now
I like that.
Now I'm kind of bouncing around based on life.
Because you decide, which one am I working on right now? That's good.
Exactly. And that's awesome. Let's talk a little about your upcoming book, Absolute Best. We've talked a lot about, and everything, a lot of what we talked about it, you mentioned that is kind of a component of the book. Why don't you share with us what your book does and what is it going to take the reader through?
Let me first kind of give you a little bit on inspiration regarding my journey to get to this, if you don't mind.
No, please.
Before speaking on Absolute Best, I wrote a book called Rearview Reflections, and it actually came from my journaling, and they're kind of poetry things about my life. But I must tell you, and we just spoke on this, I wrote it in 2011. I did not publish it until 2017. You say, what were you doing for 6 years, Savoi? It would be called fear. My mom passed. She edited my book. She passed. I grieved. I told myself, in honor of her, I needed to finally publish it. So I did. Absolute Best came along because after having finally published this book, my grief is now turned into fuel for me to do my best in living the rest of my days on this earth with what I am to be doing, whatever that is. And in my case, I've known for years I was to have written my book or books. Again, I chose quicksand instead. I chose fear. Okay. So can't change the past, but I can do everything about the future. So now we come to Absolute Best. So when I'm sharing Absolute Best and I say, hey, look, you hit your wall, you're through, no more. You're tired of the half-baked, numb, autopilot, unfulfilling life. Guess what? That's me. So I'm sharing my story of getting out of my mediocrity to hopefully bring myself to be my absolute best, all of what God has designed for me. I believe all of us have a seed of greatness within us. No matter what you believe, I believe that all of us have something to contribute. And this book is talking about some of the ways to get there, everything from dealing with the fear, absolutely dealing with your mindset, talking about your habits, giving yourself grace and forgiving yourself along the way. No more excuses, and then ultimately becoming the best person you were designed to be.
Wow. Right. And really, that's what it's about, right? Happiness and just being that best person that you're designed to be. That's awesome. And I know the book is scheduled to come out sometime in 2018, so I want everybody to be on the lookout for that. We'll be definitely updating our blog post and the website to reflect that once we know that date, so that's going to be awesome. And I know, Savoi, you do other things too. You do coaching and speaking out there. Why don't you talk to us about that?
Yes. I actually am a speaker and able to do speaking at different events, as well as I do coaching as well in regards to helping a person kind of get themselves going in the right direction to being their best selves in their lives.
Okay. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how, for speaking or for coaching or just to do a general inquiry, how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah. Well, they can email me at authorsavoi@yahoo.com, and that's AUTHOR, S as in Sam, AV as in Victor, OI as in Ice, at yahoo.com. If they're interested also in going to my website, authorsavoirags.com is where you'll learn a lot more about Rearview Reflections. In addition to that, Rearview Reflections is on Amazon online as well as Barnes & Noble. Absolute Best, I'm kind of keeping you abreast of my progress through it on Facebook, and that's at Absolute Best Book, as well as my blog, which is Absolute Best Book as well. So those are kind of the ways to stay in touch with me and be in touch.
Awesome. And everybody, will have all those links available in the show notes. So if you didn't get a chance to write those down, if you're listening to this while you're driving, no worries. Just go over to toddjudkins.com, click on the podcast, and you'll see Savoi's information there, along with all the links in the show notes. Well, Savoi, I want to thank you so much for joining the Reignite podcast today. This has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, to talk about mindset, which is so much a part about reigniting your life. And I am just so looking forward to reading your book, Absolute Best. I'll stay in touch and make sure that I get a copy. I want to get one of the first ones out there so I can read it. And when it's launched, maybe we can have you back on the podcast so we can dive into the subject of mindset more.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to. Thank you so much. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today.
Thank you, Savoi. And thank you, Reignite Nation. Remember, we come to you each week with an inspirational person or a message. So until next time, go out there and reignite. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Reignite podcast. If this episode resonated with you in any way, please share it with a friend. One of the greatest experiences human beings is being able to mastermind as a group, where we get together and collectively share and build off of each other's energy. Reigniting is no longer about accepting life as it comes, but designing the life you desire. We are committed to bringing you thought-leading and thought-provoking discussions to inform and motivate you in finding the joy in your journey, no matter what road you choose to take. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Todd Judkins, or send me an email at connect@toddjudkins.com. I'd love to hear about your struggles, your successes, and your thoughts. Thank you for listening, Reignite Nation. And always remember, the joy is not only in the destination, but what life has to offer in the journey. We'll be back with another full episode on Tuesday and with a short Reignite message on Friday just to jumpstart your weekend. Until then, keep that fuse lit and reignite.